Hello Internet, my name is Andrew Eder and welcome to another episode of Film Editorials. Today's episode comes to you in two parts. Part 1 is a review of Thor the Dark World, the new Marvel movie, and Part 2 is a more general discussion of the Marvel villains and the Marvel Universe. That's enough in the way of introductions. To Asgard! Thor the Dark World, which I'm gonna call Thor 2 just for convenience sake, stars Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman and Stellan Skarsgård and Tom Hiddleston and Anthony Hopkins and Kat Dennings all reprising their roles from the previous Thor movie and from the Avengers in most of those cases. Not everyone was in the Avengers, but a lot of them were. In his latest adventure, Thor has to save the Nine Realms under Asgard's protection from the Dark Elves, led by Chris Eccleston's Malekith, from pretty much destroying the universe and returning it to its original state of utter and complete darkness. I had a really good time watching this movie. It is very, very funny. One of the funniest Marvel movies they have made so far, and that's saying something considering how much fun Robert Downey Jr. gets to have with the Iron Man series. Pretty much everybody in the cast gets to flex their comedic muscles. I mean, obviously you have Chris Hemsworth, Thor, whose fish out of water shtick doesn't really get old. I mean, he doesn't get to do a whole lot of it in this movie because not a lot of it is spent on Earth, but it's still funny when it shows up. The funniest character is, of course, Loki, who really gets to dig into the whole Lord of Mischief thing, and it's great. My favorite scene in the movie is when he and Thor team up for the first time. It's really good. You're gonna know the scene I'm talking about if you've already seen the movie, or if you're gonna see it, you're gonna know what I'm talking about as soon as it comes up. It is great. Natalie Portman even gets to crack a few jokes, which is funny and refreshing because I don't see her in many comedic movies. And then Kat Dennings gets to do a few things, but we don't see too much of her, which in my opinion is a good thing because I can only take so much Kat Dennings. Another really funny scene is when Thor and Erik Selvig, Skarsgård's character, get reunited for the first time in this movie. That is a funny scene. The action scenes are also really intense, but the fight scenes are good and interesting and intense, and you get why everything is happening, and they don't go on for too long. Man of Steel, I'm looking at you. So while the film has a pretty generic sci-fi fantasy plotline, the humor and the enjoyable experience of watching it are enough for me to recommend it. I would say go see it. If you enjoyed the Avengers, you're almost certainly going to like this movie. It's just fun. It probably helps that I like Thor as a character. He doesn't have the same pathos as Batman or something, but he's not a flat, one-dimensional person. He has issues going on and multiple facets of himself, which is always nice to see. And then he can fly and has lightning powers. I mean, what's not to like about that? The movie isn't without problems, however. The big question, I think, at the heart of the movie is the super weapon that Malekith is going to use to destroy the universe, essentially, is called the Ether. At the beginning of the movie, we are told it is hidden away where no one can find it. 15 minutes later, Natalie Portman walks into a closet and pretty much just comes right across it instantly. I know they have to do that for the story to move along at a decent pace, but if something is hidden away so it cannot be found, it should not be that easy to find. You'd think that a human just walking around a building wouldn't be able to come across this massively powerful superweapon, but, you know, what do I know? Another thing that some people might consider to be a negative is how good Loki is. Now, that's not a bad thing, but the fact that he's not in the movie the entire time might upset some people. He's really good when he's there. He's almost scene-stealing. He's so good when he's on. So then when he leaves, or when we move on to some other point that doesn't involve Loki, you kind of feel let down and you wish they would just get back to Loki. That might be a negative. I think it's good that they don't overdo it and that he doesn't steal the entire show. I mean, it's not as bad as the Joker in The Dark Knight. It's not that bad, but Loki is definitely the best part of the movie. Now I'm going to be transitioning into part 2 of this video, where I'm going to be talking about the villains and how it connects to the larger Marvel movie universe. And this is going to have some spoilers to the other Marvel movies that have come out so far. I'm not going to talk about any spoilers for Thor 2, but if you haven't seen Thor 1 or any of the Iron Mans or the Avenger, then you're probably going to want to skip this part of the video and just go towards the end. Yeah. One thing I thought Thor 2 did really well was upping the stakes from Thor 1 and the Avengers. I mean, in the Avengers, Thor doesn't have that big of a personal stake. He just needs to get Loki back, and then Loki has these schemes afoot, so Thor has to stop him. In Thor 1, it's this rivalry between Thor and Loki. That's pretty much what drives the whole thing. Then there's the pretty much defunct frost giant empire on Jotunheim that Asgard is trying to fight. That's the plot of Thor 1. Big powerful kingdom versus, like, rebellious group of frost giants. Thor 2 is really, 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 really powerful ancient people versus Asgard, and you see it, that just one ship really messes with Asgard, and it's a big problem for the Asgardians and for Thor personally. And that's good. I think Thor 2 has done a very successful job of upping the stakes without really getting ridiculous. It's not this huge all-out war between all the kingdoms and too much stuff going on. It's still contained, but it has increased the stakes. But it hasn't diminished the events of the previous two movies, and you still deal with the effects of the previous two movies. So, for instance, Loki's in prison at the start of this one because of the events of the Avengers. So there is a continuation of events, and there is a segue from one event to the next, and I think the filmmakers did a really good job of doing that and portraying that. This is different from a lot of other Marvel movies, for instance Iron Man, and more specifically Iron Man 3. Now let's backtrack a little bit and examine the villains of the Iron Man series. In Iron Man 1, it's a business person who has a grudge against the Starks. In Iron Man 2, it's a businessman who has a grudge against Tony and the other Starks. In Iron Man 3, it's a businessman who has a grudge against Tony and the other Starks and Stark Industry. And each one of those people is essentially trying to make a super soldier to make them money. The stakes in those movies never get really increased, or if they do get increased, such as the extremist soldiers from Iron Man 3, it's at the cost of the previous events. So, I mean, in the Avengers, Iron Man's suit gets taken on by an entire alien invasion and sets off a nuclear explosion, and he's pretty much fine. In Iron Man 3, he comes across a guy whose hands can get hot, and uh-oh, now the suit's in trouble. That just doesn't seem right. They came really close to upping the stakes with the Mandarin, who is this terrorist leader, and it's this global-wide thing, and this is a problem Tony should be solving as Iron Man. And then there's the twist, where it's not actually a terrorist organization, it's just testing for this extremist program that's gone wrong. And it really just pulls the rug out from under this really serious threat and just makes it a kind of serious threat. Yes, the president gets kidnapped, and yes, Air Force One gets blown to hell, but it's still not the same thing as this global terrorist network that Tony has to take down by himself. And I'm worried about the new Captain America movie because Captain America already had really high stakes fighting World War II in what feels like a single-handed manner. In Captain America 2, we're not sure exactly who the threat is. It looks like it's going to be S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and I don't know if that's going to increase the stakes in the necessary way that a good sequel does. If they decide to make another Hulk movie, I have no idea what they're going to do for that because the whole Jekyll and Hyde shtick only goes so far. It's hard to increase the stakes from there. Am I a monster? Am I a man? I don't know. I don't particularly care for Hulk as a character, so maybe that's just me. Another thing I think the Thor movies do right compared to the other Marvel films is having bad guys from outer space. Yes, the whole aliens are invading again thing can get a bit old. It probably is going to get tired fairly soon, but I think it's still better than having everyone in the Marvel Universe concerned about making super soldiers. That was the plot of Iron Man 1, 2, 3, Captain America, and The Incredible Hulk. I mean, come on guys, can we please move on to something else? Villains of Earth. Find something different to worry about, please. Alrighty, the spoilers end here, and so does this video. How convenient. Please don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe if you liked this video and you like what I do here. And if you've already seen Thor: The Dark World, please go ahead and leave me a comment down below with what you thought. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. Oh, and in case you were wondering, yes, there is a scene halfway through the credits, and there's another scene all the way at the end. So, gonna have to stay.